so it's me, Sandy Saxena, and you are watching this fabulous webinar that I do twice a week, and it's called Ignite with Sandy. So before I start Ignite with Sandy, I'd like to remind you about this amazing platform that we're on. It's called Celestial. Celestial, you know, celestial. So we all sort of the angels and moving it around in different spheres of our life and coming together to create something absolutely awesome. Each one of us who's on this platform is a very special individual. And we want you to remain that special individual. So what is Celestial? Celestial brings to you different stories. We talk about experiences. We talk about how we can improve ourselves in different aspects of our life. And to do that, we cover women who have experienced life, who've succeeded, who failed and then succeeded, all kinds of women, because it's only when we learn from other people's experience can we be a better person. So Celestial brings to you business, Celestial brings to you personal life, Celestial brings to you health and wellness and everything else that is Celestial. And today, I have a very special guest. Now, before I introduce her, I have to tell you that she's the one who got me started on my journey of adventure. So when I first signed up with her, it was a trip to Jordan, and I had absolutely zero idea what this trip was going to be about. I thought, oh, you know, just one of those nice things, and I thought I had prepared very well. But let me tell you this, I was totally, absolutely out of my depth. And you know, the funny thing, when I arrived at the airport, you know, I'm all about getting dressed and looking nice all the time. And there were all these ladies over there who were dressed for the adventure. It was like, I thought to myself, you know, oh, we're going to take a flight, we're going to check into the hotel, and then this adventure is going to start. So why should I be dressed for that? And so there I was in 4-inch high heels with my jewelry on, and everybody looked at me like, where the hell does she think she's going? It was so funny, but it was a nice thing. And I have to say this, that I have been with my guest, Julie Lewis, who has taken me on wonderful trips. So whether it's altitude to attitude, latitude to longitude, focus, adaptability, lessons, team spirit, be yourself, be self-sufficient. I have learned all of this from this wonderful lady who is going to be with me today to share some of her experiences about life. So without further ado, let me bring on Madam Julie Lewis. Welcome, my dear.
Oh,
I will
unmute myself, and I'm in one of my favorite places. I'm in the airport. I'm not traveling anywhere.
Okay.
I'm actually waiting for Kaylin to come back. I thought he was arriving yesterday. You'll giggle. Somebody who's so focused on planning and everything. I sat here last night for an hour and a half, and then I realized, no, if he left Miami on the 29th, he's not going to arrive on the 29th. He's actually going to arrive this evening. So I am back. But I love airports. It's great. People coming and going. And hopefully I found a quiet place. So if you see loads of people coming behind with suitcases and everything, then
okay, now tell me, Julie, for the people who don't know, who is Kaylin?
Kaylin is my husband, yes, and we were on a trip to celebrate 5 years of all cancer free for Kaylin, and we went to Bimini together, swimming with wild dolphins, and as a little pre-adventure to our 15th wedding anniversary, which is the longest and strongest marriage we have both had, so that's something to celebrate. So yeah, Sandy, it's really interesting that you related back to Jordan, the first challenge that you did. That was 19 years ago. Can you imagine that?
Oh my God, yes.
Exactly. It was actually 20 years ago that I climbed my first mountain in Malaysia, Kota Kinabalu, to celebrate my 40th birthday. And on reaching the summit of that mountain, I had what can only be called an epiphany, with my arms outstretched in the rocky pose, feeling, you know, I'm on a mountain, I'm on a natural high. And that's really where the insight or the flash of inspiration came to start Mountain High, in order to offer women in particular the opportunity to challenge themselves, explore new countries and make a difference. So it took a year before I had the courage to do that. In 2003, Yannicka and myself, one of my gorgeous Norwegian soul sisters, led a trip to Everest Base Camp. And I came back from Nepal and I thought I was born to do this. So I took a huge leap of faith, resigned from my job, the security of a full-time job with all the perks, and started Mountain High in Dubai in 2003. And it was 2004 that I did my very, very first project, the 3B Jordan Challenge, Building Better Bones, in which you were actually one of the 24 women that said yes to the adventure. And yeah, I still giggle when I saw you arriving at the airport with your stilettos and your bling earrings. I thought, oh my gosh, we're gonna be sleeping in a desert tonight. I think we need to do a quick change.
Okay,
but it always worked out well. Everything always works out, you know.
So Julie, you know, for all of the ladies and other people, I mean the men who are listening,
Yes.
when you took this leap of faith, you know, steady job, steady income, and then there you were, not really knowing how many people are going to actually join, and you know how you were going to make ends meet, how you're going to break even. So just take us a little bit on that journey, because there are a lot of us who are going through that phase right now, you know, like, should I do this? Should I give up the security? What do I do?
What an amazing time to have a call to prayer, because I was living on a prayer.
It's okay, we can't hear it.
It's I couldn't have asked for a better time for that one. That's the message from the universe, isn't it? Ask for help. You know, I think, you know, I got to the stage, I was 41. I'd been widowed at 36. You know, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have children. And so I kind of had an opportunity, you know, to change from, you know, my wounds into wisdom, and to say, so what could I do to help other people overcome challenges, whether they're mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. And for me, it was climbing that mountain and then realizing that, you know, what was important to me, my health was important, travel, meeting new people, encouraging people. So I figured that, you know, the worst case scenario is if it didn't work, that I could always go back to, you know, my background's in sports science, so I could teach classes, I could teach English as a foreign language. I mean, the last, you know, when you say what's the worst case scenario, at that time it would have been going back to England and working in the family business, you know, which is building supplies and plant hire. So I thought, no, as long as I've got a roof over my head, food in the fridge, and ideas and opportunities. And, you know, yeah, I moved out of my apartment. I rented a room in a shared villa on the beach. I manifested a car because I had to give back the company car. So I set the intention that Land Rover would sponsor me, and eventually they did. So I think, you know, it's about getting really clear on what you want to do and what you need to let go of so that you can do that. You know, I was very frugal in the first few years of business. You know, I was, as long as I was traveling, as long as I was eating good food, as long as I had petrol in the car and I could do a couple of courses and see my family, then I was very, very happy. You know, when you're just responsible for yourself, it's a little bit easier. So, I mean, kudos to women that do that, you know, somebody depends on their income or the kids depend on them or something. It's a very, very different scenario, you know. So I think we've all got different circumstances and challenges, but I really do believe that if you want to do something with all of your heart, women will always find a way. And we've got an incredible woman in the room with us, Claire Boscott, who found a way to, you know, leave her home and her 2 children, grown-up children, to make a fresh start. So I don't think age or nationality or gender is not an issue. I think, you know, if you're male, female, English, Chinese, Moroccan, anybody, if you have a goal and it aligns with your values, then you will find a way. And you might have some ups and downs. And I certainly did have some weeks where I was like, oh, how am I going to pay the rent this month? Right, I think I better start a cycling group. And I did. And I started a cycling group and I got 10 bikes gifted to me. And I charged 300 dirhams and I made my rent, which was 3,000 dirhams for that month, you know, because I said, sign up and I'll give you 10 sessions and everything. So we become much more resourceful when we need to be. Sometimes it's easy when everything's flowing and everything's easy that we're a little bit frivolous. But I was very, very focused.
When you're in that comfort zone, you don't want to take that leap of faith and put yourself into that voluntarily, put yourself into that position that says, oh, you know, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to let go of this. You know, it's sort of downsizing to upsize later, right?
I call it right sizing, actually, because, you know, at the time I was single, you know, I'd been widowed 5 years. I wasn't dating anybody. I was very focused about now look after myself, start my business, create something. So, you know, I didn't need, you know, a big apartment that, you know, had, you know, bills and everything with it. So I took the route of, okay, small, all inclusive. It's on the beach. What a bonus. I could take my kayak right across the beach and run walking groups and kayaking groups to get people fit for adventure. So it suited me. You know, it's not for everybody. I think, you know, the question we ask is, what do I need to let go of so that I can get going?
Yes.
And what's the most important thing for me right now? You know, whether that's starting a business, writing a book, moving to a new country, getting married, getting unmarried. I mean, they're all different transitions in our life. So it's deciding what's important.
So coming to you, so you started out on that, but then if I follow you, I've been following you, of course, for a long time. And then I suddenly realized that you were taking classes for public speaking. And then you were writing a book. And,
yes.
So what got you started on, for example, public speaking?
You know, each time we came back from an expedition, and I think you maybe remember this, we would do talks about it because people wanted to know, what were you doing? Where were you going? Oh, have you got any pictures? So we would use venues just to say, come along, have a night in Jordan and listen to the stories. So it became a natural progression, you know, that I was talking about what we learned, what we did, you know, what we sensed, how it changed us. So I really, over the last 21 years, have built up a very strong portfolio of experiences in different terrains. You know, what happens when you're cold, tired, and hungry? What happens when, you know, there's a monsoon? You know, so it's all about, you know, experiences in business, in life, in relationships, so that you have real-time resilience and you have to think on your feet and think, we can't do this, so what can we do instead? We can't do this, so what can we do instead? You know, and it's really, there were so many stories that came out of that. Julie, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And I thought, well, my English grades were not the best at school. However, I'll give it a go. And yes, in 2016, I published a book, Moving Mountains, Discover the Mountain in You, of which you contributed a story. And really, it collated around 50 different stories of women and a few good men who had climbed a real or metaphorical mountain, and what were their lessons and their learnings from that. And book number 2 is on its way, coming soon. And this time, instead of saying, look up, go up, it's like, go deeper. It's again, it's titled Uncharted Waters, Discover Your Hidden Depths. So it's really tapping into the feminine element of women.
Exactly. So Uncharted Waters. I want you to tell me what possessed you to swim the English Channel.
You know, 15 years after I climbed my first mountain, I went back to the same mountain to see if it had another message for me. It's a long way to go for a message, I know, but I just figured, you know, I had so much inspiration from that first mountain. So I went back to Kota Kinabalu, and this time it was pouring it down with rain. Thankfully, we had all the right clothes and everything, so we were able to make it from the summit. So I thought, the message is about water. I'm meant to do something around water. And when we got back to the lodge, everybody mentioned that, you know, the Everest of open water swimming was the Channel. And I thought, La Manche, maybe I should have a little go at that. And I actually wanted to do it as a team sport, as a relay, and had 4 women that signed up. Then when they realized what they had to do, i.e. you couldn't wear a wetsuit, you know, you had to qualify by swimming for 2 hours in cold water. We'd need to be there at least a week before and maybe a week after. Then slowly, one by one, they dropped out. And it's like, oh, it's just me. So I, yeah.
One point I want you, I need more information on is, you know, we always talk about being in hot waters, and you're
Yes.
talking about cold waters. So how cold is the water?
Well, Dover water, the North Sea is very different from the Arabian Sea. I can tell you that much. I had to now, because it was so low, I had to do 6 hours in cold water. That meant less than 16 degrees and swim 6 hours consistently just to qualify. I managed to achieve that. And then I went off and did some speaking. Then I came back and I lived in a caravan for 5 weeks, and I just swam, ate and sleep. Not eat, pray, love. I swam, ate and slept. And you know, unfortunately on the day, the weather gods were not in my favor, and the sea conditions, and after swimming for just over 4 hours in the dark, in really cold, not so clean water, and the smell of diesel from the boat, was literally, you're not going to France. The tides were really taking me back up to where the ferries come out in and out of Dover Port, and you don't really want to argue with a big P&O ferry. I cried like a baby, and then I realized it's better to be disappointed than dead. And maybe I wasn't meant to swim the channel, but I did learn a lot about myself and a lot about water, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so you went, so you're talking about in the deep waters, and now I want you to tell us about the high mountain, which is another thing where you couldn't actually do the summit the first time and you came back.
That's right. In what year would it be? I think it was 2014, by which time I'd been married 5 years, something like that. Yeah. And thankfully, I married a man that liked climbing mountains. And so he actually proposed on the summit of a mountain in Nepal. We decided that we would go and climb Mount Elbrus in Russia because it's one of the seven summits. And so we joined a team and flew to Moscow and then on to another place called Mineral Vody and joined the team, hiking up and down the mountains. And then on our summit night, we set off in the middle of the night, as you do, all wrapped up, headlamps on. And literally within a couple of hours of that summit attempt, we had such an incredible storm, a really bad storm, winds, 55-kilometer winds. And our guide just said, you know, just keep going. And normally you would take a break and have some hot drink, or you'll have a little bit of something, assistance, but we just kept our head down, going for 6 hours solid. The snow was bleating down. I couldn't see. I was just following the gaiter of the person in front of me. And then it got to the point where it was getting to be a whiteout. So we were 342 meters away from the summit. Oh. And our guide, which doesn't sound very much, but at that time it was, yes. Our guide said, we have to turn back. And, you know, and I was upset because at that point we were actually sponsored by a company. I'd got the flag ready to fly at the summit and everything. But anyway, what happened, we did turn around. And as we were walking back, there was a huge gust of wind and the guide literally had to grab my right hand. It slipped and my glove went flying off into the wind, into this white vortex. And I remember just sitting down low thinking, oh, I don't want to die here. I've got so much else to say and do. This is really scary. I didn't think I signed up for this. And I literally kind of crunched low. And the guy said, look, when you get to these rocks, which were about 200 meters away, we can get a snowmobile to come and take you down the rest of the mountain. It'll be $100. I said to him, I'll give him $500. Tell him to
Yes. So it must have been very scary for you.
It was super, super scary. And, you know, I've always made a promise to myself and to my parents that I would never take risks because my life is much more important than, you know, is the soul or the ego. And the ego says, yeah, we can keep going. It's only 342 meters. But many people have faltered on that mountain. So it's one to take very seriously. So we came back down, we had, some hot chocolate and had a good night's sleep. The next morning, everybody said, do you want to go back up again? I was like, I'm done. I got nothing left. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. And just that fear of like, I was so close, you know, to being blown off that mountain. And it's not as if you can just call for the ambulance or anything there, really. So very long story short, I said to Kaylin, let's go back, let's refocus, recalibrate, and we'll come back next year, and we'll just come back, the two of us. We won't come with a group. We will do it in our own pace. So in 2015, talk about resilience and delayed gratification, we went back to that same mountain, just hired one guide, and I'd taken a group to do Kilimanjaro a week before that. So I'd already acclimatized. I was super fit, and we made it. And I cried at the summit, and the guy said to me, weren't you that woman that cried last year? And I said, yeah, I cry when I'm happy and I cry when I'm sad. I cry a lot. I'm human.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So the message that I'm getting from you is, if you have not succeeded for the first time, don't beat yourself up about it.
No. And I don't consider it failure. Failure is not even trying, you know, for me, in my books, it's just not the outcome that I wanted. But I did learn an awful lot about it. And I share that, you know, when people said, oh, isn't it embarrassing? How could you do a talk about that? And I said, well, I think it's important, you know, this is my Brené Brown vulnerability, to say, yeah, I don't always reach the summit. You know, I didn't reach the summit of that mountain. I didn't make it across the English Channel. Does that make me a wimp? No, it just makes me human. And do I want to do the channel again? I don't think so. I think there's much more beautiful waters to swim in that are nice and clean.
Quite true, quite true.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you choose your challenge, you know, it's hard to do this. It's hard not to do that. Choose your hard. Yeah.
So you then had a very big emotional and upheaval in your life when your husband was diagnosed with something very serious.
Yes, I mean, as if it wasn't enough to have some of the experience that I'd already had, widowed, held at gunpoint, crossing the desert after the gold crisis, blown off mountains, etc. I've had lots of positive experiences, by the way. But in 2018, Kaylin was behaving very, very strangely, social behavior, language, etc. And what we found out that he actually had a tumor on his left frontal cortex that was impacting his language and his behavior to the point that he wanted to speak and he couldn't speak. Thankfully, we were able to get into Abu Dhabi, a Cleveland clinic with the best brain surgeon in the Middle East, because if somebody's going to cut your husband's heads open, you want it to be the right one. And it was close to the surface, so I was able to remove it. Unfortunately, when they looked at the tissue, it was cancerous, and they diagnosed it as stage 4 melanoma that had metastasized to the brain with, you know, a 6-month lifespan, which I didn't tell Kaylin at the time. I just said, okay, that we need to focus very deeply on this. So forget social life, forget work, forget absolutely everything. My major project then was to keep this man alive. And he had radiotherapy, immunotherapy. The immunotherapy didn't suit him, so he had kidney failure twice, on dialysis. All kinds of different things. I took him to a spiritual healer. I slept in the hospital. I came out in big red blotches because I don't like being in hospital. I think it was an allergic emotional reaction. I had crystals under him. I was giving him Reiki. I was giving emotional training. I was making sure he was eating, even though he didn't want to eat. And, you know, this was really probably one of the hardest things I've done in my life, other than losing my parents, which I think is one of the hardest things we all have to face in our lives. And after a period of around 18 months, he's a miracle. He's a miracle. Literally, even his oncologist said, there's no, I don't understand. I said, we don't need to understand. I just prayed. And when it was hard to pray, I prayed the hardest. And some people didn't even know what I was going through because I didn't put it on Facebook.
Yes,
that's
quite
for
true.
sure.
Yes,
you know, I
didn't
just
know
really
about it at all till you
No.
shared it with me later.
Yeah. I mean, I just think this is something I really channel my energy. I need to look after Kaylin, and then I need to look after myself, because it's very easy as a primary caregiver. We all know, if we looked after elderly parents as well, or sick children, that you can give, and it's like, I haven't got anything left to give. So I made sure that, you know, I kept that balance. So when I went to the hospital, I was smiled, I was positive, not like, oh my gosh, so it was a huge journey, and now he's been given a second chance at life, and I've learned so much about that. And I think it's made me even more of an empath when I speak to other people that are caregivers for their elderly parents, or their children are sick, or somebody's going through cancer. So I'd like to think that, it's a message of inspiration and hope to other people that, when people say stage 4, or you've got 6 months to live, I made sure Kaylin didn't know that. I mean, I said to him, how long would you like to live? And he said, I want to live for a long time. He has a daughter, wanted to see his grandchildren. I said, well, that's what we're doing. And I made him say every single day, every single cell in my body is vibrantly healthy. I want you to keep repeating that. So this psychoneuroimmunology that I'd learned about, I think it's very, very powerful. If you have a strong reason to live, and you've got somebody that's caring for you as a patient advocate, it makes a huge difference. He said several times, I was 4 times I can count on my hand where if I hadn't have been there and made something happen, he has to get onto IC right now. There was about a cubic centimeter, and he would have gone upstairs, and that would have been, oh, Julie's widowed twice now, which at the time was just, no, this can't happen again. Why are you testing me again? I've learned my resilience. So I'm choosing actually these days not to talk about resilience so much, because when I talk about it, the universe seems to send me something to test it. So now I'm talking about joy and abundance and radical expansion.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. But something, Jules, there are very few people who have your resilience. Very few. And, when you talk about it, you really bring about a big and a major change in people's attitudes, because everybody is poor me, why me? They're all into that victim kind of thing. And that really doesn't help them, number one, and the people whom they're supposed to be caring for, they also don't get the same positive vibes that you say are so important.
And I'll put my hand on heart and say I have my days where I'm flat and I don't want to talk to anybody, and I just really need to re-plug in. I meditate, I'll go for a walk on the beach, I will listen to some inspirational music. So, we can't be high all the time, and we don't want to be low all the time. If we can keep this, it's nice and steady, and then we go, whoop, we have a nice experience, and we come back down, then we have a not so good experience. But all of these experiences shape us, and it's who you become as a result of those experiences. And what I find even more powerful than those experiences, reflecting on those experiences. What did I learn about that? What would I do differently? What would I tell my best friend about that? Knowing what I know now, would I still do the same thing? So you become a sage. I think when I was in my 40s, I was this explorer. When I was in my 50s, I was the warrior. I earned my stripes from many, many battles. And I think now, at 60, I'm the sage. I'm very calm and very zen. And sometimes people say, Julie, you're so calm. You used to be so like, wah. And I think I can be anything. I'm a chameleon. I can be anything. But most of all, I can be myself.
Okay, so now Julie the Sage.
Yes.
What's next for Julie the Sage?
Really, I would say right now I'm in this liminal space. I've got one foot in the things that I've always done, the expeditions and the retreats and the speaking and teaching, and then another foot in this other next evolution of Julie Lewis. That my values have never changed. My value has always been health, relationships, strong relationships, learning and growing, making a difference, and I've added freedom to that. And when I say freedom, I mean financial, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional freedom. So my highest emotional priority is joy. So what brings me joy? How can by what I say and what I do and offer, bring other people health, joy, and freedom? So is that more speaking? Yes, I'd like to do more speaking. Is it the book? Yes, the book will be coming out this year. That's my promise to myself. And I'm kind of playing with coming up with a blueprint, let's say, that kind of covers positive psychology, Eastern philosophy, functional medicine, and shamanic practices. You will always find me in nature. I love animals. I don't have a dog of my own. I just borrow everybody else's. I just think, that part of the reason why some people get so stressed is because they're disconnected from nature. You know, we spend a lot of time indoors looking at screens, fluorescent lights, air-conditioned boxes. We were meant to run free, born free. So to spend time in nature, to listen to music, to dance like nobody's watching, to have a good laugh, to have a good cry, to experience all of what human is being. So I think for me, you know, to be able to impart that to other women and men on their journey, you know, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You know, I've got my young niece with me at the minute. She's 26, and her boyfriend of 7 years has just said he doesn't want to be with her anymore. She's devastated, you know, because they were a duet as well. So it's not just the relationship, it's their singing career. And so my brother phoned me, she needs some Auntie Julie time. Can she come to you? And so I kind of put these wings around her and just say, you know, what have you learned from this? What would you like in a relationship moving forward? You know, this happens to everybody. There's not one person on this planet right now that doesn't have a challenge of some sort.
Yes,
the only people
very
that don't
true.
have a challenge are buried 6 foot under or up there in the celestial world. And I remember one year I was gifted a book called Who Will Cry When You Die? And I thought, what a funny book to give me for my birthday. and literally it's a Sanskrit saying that, you know, when you're born, you come into this world, you crying and everybody's joyful. So live your life in such a way that when you pass, you're joyful because I've done everything. I've said what I wanted to say. I've done everything I wanted to do, and people are crying. So it's actually a very positive book. It's by Robin Sharma. But initially when I saw it for my birthday, I thought, this is really strange to give me on the day of my birth, you know. But I think, you know, if we look at it, you know, how can I live my life in such a way that when I do pass, this is what family I've got left, and friends and siblings and clients, communities, to say, yeah, that was Julie. You know, she was a mad woman. She made a difference. She encouraged other people to live their wildest dreams, X, Y, Z, you know. So that is something to give some framework to your life. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm going to be one of those people, if I'm still around and you're not, that I'm going to say, oh, that was Julie.
Yes.
Because because of Julie, I learned horse riding.
Yes, in Mongolia.
Yes, and because of Julie, I tried to learn how to ride a bicycle that I still can't ride now, and I broke my tooth because of Julie. And I got to row a boat in Kerala, and we won a trophy because of Julie, right? And then I went into this freezing place called the Arctic, all because of Julie, right? So I can say that I've had some of the most wonderful experiences just because of you.
This is it. And you're creating those for others, you know. I mean, as I mentioned before, all of our experiences.
I always say this, and I think the 3 things that you mentioned is that you live by is health, joy, and freedom.
Yes. Yeah. And there are many more, you know, courage, travel, adventure, but joy, if it brings me joy, tick, I'm in. Is it good for my health? Tick, I'm in. Does it give me a sense of freedom? Tick, I'm in. You know, peace and love, of course. When you do what you love, everything falls into place. So when I have a decision to make, I think, does it bring me health, joy, love, peace, and freedom? Yes, I'm in. If it doesn't, you know, no. Thank you so much. However, no.
Yeah, you know, something that's so important that you're saying that, because there's so many people, women, men, but since Celestial is all about women, well, I'm talking about women, they continue to be in something that keeps them unhappy all the time. And they seem to justify that by, you know, it's my duty, I have nothing else to do, this is the only way. And here you're saying, leave all of that. Yeah, because that's what you did. And you're a living example of how you can just let go, finish everything that you used to do, and take on something new. And you're doing it every decade. It's not like, okay, now I'm old, so I can't do it.
No, right? No. No such word as old in my vocabulary. Youth boosting. I'm not anti-aging. Yes. I am youth boosting. See you, Claire. It's so lovely to see you here. This is a woman that I admire. She's moving mountains.
Yes. So I think it's absolutely fabulous, Julie, that you still have a zest for life. And no matter
Mm,
what your challenges have been, and many of us would never ever want to be in the situations you've been. You know, it only takes a very special kind of person like you to come out of that smiling.
yes, and I think that's, when somebody said, what's your best quality, I would say is that I can turn adversity into opportunity. I can turn wounds into wisdom, and from being a victim to being the master. And if I can impart that to other people that are going through challenges, struggles, different transitions in our life, through our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, relationships, finances, careers, and everything, it's just to surrender and just say, what would I really, really, really love to do? What would that look like? Who can help me? How can I do that? It's very easy to stay comfortable and say, it's okay, and justify, it's okay. But we don't want to be just okay. We want to be amazing. We were meant to be
Absolutely.
joyful and
Yes.
not to just be okay,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what you just said is about how a lot of women, just sit there and they wallow in self-pity and become more and more miserable and become more stressed out, and then invite all kinds of diseases and ailments
Mm.
into themselves just because they don't have the courage to stand up and say, I need help.
Yes. And please, 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 I always think, I say to people, I'm a resource. I'm not just somebody that you see today and have gone tomorrow. I've got enough wisdom to share. I've got broad shoulders, and I'm happy to help anybody that's, really struggling. And because when we're stressed, we can't see.
Yes.
We get foggy glasses. Heather, I'm happy. Sandy's got my contact, my mobile
Yes.
number. I mean, we can have a chat. I'm happy to do that, because it's so important to support each other. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, a bunch of us went out for a walk, and we haven't seen each other for a while. It was part of the Power of Three group.
Yes.
And one of the girls, Linda, was just saying that she'd seen something on a clip, and it was when women needed support, they just opened the door and they were shouting, sisters, 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 like calling out for your sister. And somebody would come with a box of tissues, somebody come with a bottle of wine, somebody would come with chocolate, somebody would come with some jokes. So we just all need to rally around and support each other, because we're going to have highs, lows, and plateaus. So if you can think of 3 people that you can pick up the phone and say, I need a good laugh, I need a good cry, I need some resources, I need some new connections, I need somewhere to stay tonight. It's just, you're absolutely blessed. So
Yes.
it's so important to build this ecosystem of support.
Yes, absolutely. So what we're going to end the session now, Julie. But before we let you go,
Okay.
I want you to give me 3 things that our viewers can take away with them and say, yes, I heard this from Julie and I'm going to
Yes.
implement it now.
I think, the first thing is take good care of yourself. Self-care is a top priority for me. You can only give from a full cup. You can only give what you've got. So always, always, always put yourself first. I've told my husband several times, I love you more than I love you. I look after myself, and because I look after myself and I love myself, then I'm a joy to be around, and that makes you happy. So I think always, always put yourself first. Take care of how you're thinking, eating, moving, sleeping. Check in every day. It's the minute you wake up. What do I want to invite into today? Joy, peace, gratitude, etc. And always, always, always ask for help when you need it. Never ever suffer in silence. I've done that sometimes in my past, and I've just realized there's no coming out of this. When you feel stuck, you have to move.
Yes.
When you feel sad, you have to do something that will make you happy. When you feel lost, you have to do something to find yourself. When you feel lonely, it's a sign to say, I need some connection. So all of our emotions are giving us messages all the time. I feel sad. I want to feel happy. What will make me happy? So it's all about know thyself, love thyself, choose thyself. How about that?
Absolutely, darling. That was absolutely amazing. And I could listen to you for hours, but the good thing is that you're just in Abu Dhabi and I can reach you anytime.
Yes, you can. Yes, in the
Yes, but
digital highway and in person.
totally, totally. Thank you very much, my love, for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen
Live
to
from
you
the airport.
again. Yes. And you see, here's another thing. You could have said, oh, I can't do this. But you said to me, oh, it doesn't matter where I am. I'll find a place which is quiet and I will do this with you. Not to
Yes.
worry.
Yeah.
That is what makes it all the more interesting because you won't take no for an answer.
Yes. Women are like
And
water. We always find a way.
not all of them,
Mm,
some of them.
some of them.
But people, when we have people like you and a whole lot of other ones who are really interested in, enjoying their life, enjoying their time, then I think that positive vibe will spread and we will have a lot more women who will find their way and
Yes.
be happy. Okay, so on that beautiful
Big
note, my
high
love,
five to
take care.
that. Yes.
Take care, my
Thank you
sweetheart.
so
Thank you
much.
very much. It was lovely to have you with us. And we're going to close now. But to all the people who have tuned in, who will be watching us on YouTube, because this episode, like all the episodes before, Ignite with Sandy, go onto YouTube. So we'll be sharing the link with all of you. And Jules, you can forward it to all your friends. And we will also be putting in your contact details so that they can get in touch with you if they would like to do so on a personal level. So remember, Celestia is there for you, and we want you to be there for us in Celestia. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on YouTube, of course. And so we'd like you to support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, by sharing the channel details and the links with your friends so we can grow our community. Because when we have people like Jules on the show, we're going to have a lot more people learning something, taking away some gems with them that they can implement and sparkle in their life. Right. So on that lovely note, bye for now and see you next week.